For centuries, the name Judas Iscariot has been synonymous with betrayal, a figure condemned, reviled, etched into the collective consciousness as the ultimate villain in the most pivotal story ever told. His kiss, a symbol of deceit, his fate, a testament to treachery. This narrative has been a cornerstone of faith, a stark warning against the darkness that can reside within the human heart. But what if this story, the one we have all been taught, is incomplete? What if the betrayal was not what it seemed? What if the true act was far more complex, far more profound, and Judas, the reviled betrayer, was in fact the chosen one, entrusted with a task so sacred, so agonizing, that only he could bear its weight? This is the unsettling question posed by texts that were buried, hidden from the world for nearly 2 millennia. If this story is touching something in you, subscribe to Gnostic Signal for more hidden truths and forgotten wisdom. Within the Gnostic lens, the conventional understanding of good and evil, of hero and villain, often dissolves into a more nuanced, unsettling reality. The traditional narrative paints Judas as a greedy, weak-willed disciple, driven by 30 pieces of silver. Yet, in these hidden texts, a different portrait emerges, one that challenges the very foundations of our understanding of sacrifice and divine purpose. It suggests that the most profound acts of liberation might not always appear as virtuous deeds, but sometimes as necessary, painful functions within a larger, unseen design. This radical reinterpretation forces us to question not just Judas's role, but the very nature of the spiritual drama unfolding around us. It is a story that demands a reevaluation of everything we thought we knew. The radical reinterpretation of Judas Iscariot's role began to surface with the unearthing of a text that had been lost to history for nearly 2 millennia. This was the Gospel of Judas, a document that lay buried in the sands of Egypt, part of a collection of Gnostic manuscripts discovered in the 1970s. Its eventual translation and publication in 2006 sent ripples through the theological world, challenging deeply entrenched beliefs and forcing a reevaluation of early Christian history. This ancient text, written in Coptic, offered a perspective so divergent from the canonical Gospels that it was immediately recognized as a profound and, for many, unsettling piece of the puzzle. Within this lost gospel, the narrative of Judas is turned on its head. He is not portrayed as a villain driven by greed, but as a figure uniquely chosen by Jesus for a specific, difficult task. The text presents Jesus confiding in Judas, sharing esoteric knowledge that he withholds from the other disciples, who are depicted as largely misunderstanding his true teachings. This suggests a profound level of trust and a deeper hidden purpose behind the events that unfolded. The discovery of this gospel was not merely an academic curiosity, it was a direct challenge to the established narrative, a voice from the past asserting a different truth about one of history's most maligned figures. The significance of this text lies in its Gnostic origins. Gnosticism, with its emphasis on hidden knowledge and the illusory nature of the material world, provides a lens through which Judas's actions take on an entirely new meaning. It suggests that the betrayal was not an act of malice, but a necessary function within a divine plan, understood only by a select few. This unearthing forces us to confront the possibility that the stories we hold as absolute truth may be incomplete, filtered through centuries of interpretation and suppression. It opens a door to a more complex understanding of spiritual dynamics, where appearances can be profoundly deceptive, and the true hero might wear the mask of the villain. The most startling revelation within the Gospel of Judas is its portrayal of Judas himself, not as a betrayer, but as the Gnostic initiate, the only disciple truly capable of understanding Jesus' esoteric teachings. This challenges centuries of established dogma, presenting a Jesus who deliberately singles out Judas for a task of immense spiritual significance, a task that the other disciples, mired in their material understanding, could never comprehend. In these texts, Jesus is depicted as often frustrated with his other followers, finding them incapable of grasping the deeper truths he imparts. They pray to a false god, they cling to worldly desires, and they misunderstand the very nature of his mission. Judas, however, is different. Jesus sees in him a spark of true discernment, a capacity for gnosis, direct intuitive knowledge of the divine. He pulls Judas aside, revealing secrets about the true nature of the cosmos, the archons, and the illusory prison of the material world. He speaks of a higher realm, the pleroma, and the true spirit trapped within the flesh. This private instruction elevates Judas to a unique position, making him the sole confidant of Jesus' most profound wisdom. It suggests that the act of betrayal was not a spontaneous act of malice, but a preordained function, a sacred duty entrusted to the one disciple who possessed the spiritual maturity to carry it out. This perspective radically redefines the concept of a chosen one. It implies that being chosen does not always mean being glorified or celebrated. Sometimes it means accepting a role that will bring infamy, isolation, and profound suffering, all for a higher spiritual purpose. Judas, in this light, becomes a tragic hero, burdened with a secret knowledge that separates him from his peers and condemns him in the eyes of the world. His betrayal was not a failure of faith, but an act of ultimate obedience to a truth far beyond the comprehension of ordinary men. He was chosen not to worship, but to act, to facilitate a crucial transition that the other disciples, in their spiritual blindness, could never have performed. To fully grasp the profound nature of Judas's role, we must delve into the Gnostic understanding of the material body itself. Within these hidden teachings, the physical form is often viewed not as a sacred vessel, but as a prison, a temporary and corruptible shell that encases the divine spirit, the true self. This body, along with the entire material cosmos, is seen as a creation of the Demiurge, designed to trap and contain the sparks of light that emanated from the true pleroma. The goal of Gnosis, therefore, is not to glorify the flesh, but to transcend it, to achieve liberation of the spirit from its earthly confines. In this context, Judas's act takes on a radical new meaning, the sacrifice of the flesh. Jesus, as a divine being, was understood to be temporarily inhabiting a physical body, a vessel that, while necessary for his mission, was ultimately a limitation. For his spirit to fully return to the pleroma, to escape the Demiurge's domain, the physical body had to be shed. Judas, as the chosen initiate, was entrusted with the agonizing task of facilitating this release. His betrayal was not an act of malice against Jesus, but a necessary function, a catalyst for the ultimate spiritual liberation. This perspective challenges the conventional understanding of sacrifice. It suggests that true spiritual liberation might require actions that appear, on the surface, to be destructive or morally reprehensible. The act of handing Jesus over to the authorities, leading to his crucifixion, was not about condemning him, but about freeing his divine essence from the bonds of matter. It was a brutal, yet essential step in the larger cosmic drama. Judas bore the burden of this perceived transgression, understanding that his actions, though reviled by the world, were serving a higher hidden purpose, the ultimate release of the divine spirit from its earthly prison. The Demiurge, in his ignorance and arrogance, believes himself to be the supreme creator of this cosmos. He is blind to the true pleroma, the higher spiritual realms from which the divine sparks originate. This blindness is crucial to understanding Judas's role. The Archons, the subordinate entities of the Demiurge, operate within the confines of this material reality, bound by its rules and perceptions. They are masters of illusion, but their understanding is limited to the physical and energetic dimensions they control. They cannot comprehend a spiritual act that transcends their domain, especially one disguised as a conventional betrayal. When Judas delivered Jesus to the authorities, it appeared, to the Archons and to the world, as a simple act of treachery. They saw the 30 pieces of silver, the kiss, the arrest, all within the framework of their material understanding. They perceived it as a victory, a successful removal of a figure who threatened their established order. What they failed to grasp was the deeper esoteric purpose behind the act. They were deceived by the very appearance of betrayal, unable to see that this was not about physical capture, but about spiritual liberation. This cosmic deception is a recurring theme in Gnostic texts. The Archons, despite their power within this realm, are ultimately ignorant. They can manipulate and control, but they cannot truly understand the divine essence that seeks to escape their prison. Judas's action, therefore, served a dual purpose. It facilitated the release of Jesus' spirit from its physical vessel, and simultaneously, it outwitted the Archons. They believed they were asserting their control, when in reality they were unknowingly participating in the very act that allowed a divine spark to transcend their dominion. It was a masterful maneuver, a hidden victory disguised as a public defeat, understood only by the chosen few. The unique position of Judas, as revealed in the Gospel of Judas, carries with it a profound burden, the weight of true knowledge. To be chosen for such an esoteric task, to be privy to truths that contradict the very fabric of perceived reality, is to be condemned to a profound isolation. The other disciples, in their earnest but limited understanding, could not grasp the true nature of Jesus' mission or Judas's role within it. They saw only the surface, the apparent betrayal, and their judgment, fueled by their own ignorance, sealed Judas's fate as a pariah. This isolation is a common theme for those who glimpse beyond the veil of illusion. When one begins to see the patterns, to understand the mechanisms of the metaphysical prison, the world often becomes a lonely place. The narratives that comfort others, the beliefs that bind communities, suddenly appear as constructs, as part of the very system one is trying to transcend. Judas, in this light, embodies the ultimate seeker of gnosis, one who accepts the solitary path, even when it leads to universal condemnation. His knowledge was not a source of power or glory, but a heavy cross to bear, separating him irrevocably from the world he inhabited. The burden of this knowledge is not merely intellectual, it is deeply emotional and spiritual. To know that one is playing a crucial, yet misunderstood role in a cosmic drama, to willingly accept the mantle of villainy for a higher purpose, demands an extraordinary level of inner fortitude. It requires a complete detachment from external validation and a profound trust in one's own inner discernment. Judas's story, when viewed through this Gnostic lens, becomes a powerful testament to the cost of true insight and the profound loneliness that often accompanies the path of genuine spiritual liberation. The implications of the Gospel of Judas, when viewed through a Gnostic lens, are profound for our understanding of betrayal, sacrifice, and the very nature of spiritual liberation. It forces us to question the simplistic dualities of good and evil that often dominate our narratives. If Judas, the archetypal betrayer, was in fact the chosen one, then the lines between hero and villain become blurred, revealing a more complex tapestry of divine purpose. This suggests that what appears as a transgression in the material world might be a necessary, even sacred act in the spiritual realm. This reinterpretation challenges us to look beyond surface appearances. It suggests that true sacrifice might not always be recognized or celebrated by the masses. Instead, it might involve accepting a role that brings infamy and condemnation, all for the sake of a higher spiritual outcome. Judas's act, in this context, was not a moral failing, but a functional necessity, a catalyst for Jesus' spirit to transcend the limitations of the flesh and the archonic domain. It was a sacrifice of reputation, of peace, and ultimately of life, for a liberation that extended beyond the individual. Reclaiming this narrative means understanding that the path to freedom is rarely straightforward or comfortable. It demands a willingness to question established truths, to look for hidden meanings, and to trust one's own inner discernment even when it contradicts external consensus. It is a call to recognize that the forces at play in this reality are far more subtle and sophisticated than simple moral tales suggest. The story of Judas, therefore, becomes a powerful allegory for the seeker of gnosis, a reminder that the most profound truths often lie hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding, waiting to be unearthed by those brave enough to look beyond the obvious. The Gospel of Judas, when examined through the lens of Gnostic teachings, compels us to move beyond simplistic dualities of good and evil. it challenges the very foundation of how we perceive divine purpose and human action. The traditional narrative, with its clear-cut villain and hero, serves a specific function within the Demiurge's system: to maintain a world of judgment, blame, and external moral codes. But the Gnostic interpretation of Judas shatters this framework, revealing a universe far more complex, where appearances are deceptive and true spiritual acts often defy conventional morality. This perspective suggests that the ultimate liberation lies not in adhering to external rules or judging others, but in cultivating inner discernment. It forces us to ask, what if the most profound acts of love or sacrifice are not always recognized as such by the world? What if the path to freedom requires actions that are misunderstood, even condemned, by those who remain trapped in the archonic illusions? Judas's story in this light becomes a powerful allegory for the seeker who dares to question everything, who looks beyond the surface narrative to the deeper hidden truths. Ultimately, the Gospel of Judas is not about absolving a historical figure of blame in a conventional sense. It is about revealing a mechanism of the metaphysical prison itself: the power of imposed narratives, the manipulation of perception, and the way our judgment can blind us to higher spiritual purposes. It invites us to consider that true spiritual freedom might reside in transcending these dualities, in understanding that every action, even one as reviled as betrayal, can serve a function within a larger unseen design. It is a call to silence the external noise of judgment and listen to the subtle whispers of gnosis, which reveal a reality far more intricate and challenging than we ever imagined.